There was no storm when I left. No slammed doors, no screaming match, no dramatic confrontation, just silence. The kind that lingers, thick and heavy, pressing down on everything. I took one last look at the house I had poured years of my life into. Every brick, every piece of furniture, every damn picture on the walls. All of it felt like a museum of lies. I don't know what I was expecting to feel in that moment. Anger, sorrow, maybe even relief, but all I felt was emptiness. A hollow space where my life used to be. And so, without a word, I walked out. I left behind the woman who had vowed to love me, honor me, stand beside me, the woman who in the end had done none of those things. She didn't even know I had found out. That's what made it worse. There had been no confessions, no tears of regret, just deception playing out in the shadows while she smiled at me across the dinner table. I had seen the messages, the reservations at the hotels, the late-night whispers when she thought I was asleep. I knew the name of the man she had given herself to, a stranger. Someone I had never met, but who now existed in my life like an unwanted ghost. But I didn't explode. I didn't confront her with printouts of her texts or demand an explanation. No, that would have given her control over the situation. It would have allowed her to manipulate, twist, and cry her way into making me doubt what I knew was real. Instead, I left in silence. No goodbye, no note. Just a man vanishing from his own life. I didn't just walk away from her. I walked away from the version of myself that would have stayed, that would have let her break me piece by piece with every lie she told. I walked away from the man who had been loyal to a fault, the one who had given everything without question. And now I was someone else. She wouldn't understand. At first, she'd think I was running an errand, or that I had forgotten to tell her something. But then the hours would pass, then a full day. She would call my phone, only to find it disconnected. She would reach out to my friends, my family, and hear the same response. No one knew where I was, and that's when panic would set in. That's when the regret would start eating at her. But it would be too late because I was gone the first night. Away felt strange, but not in the way I expected. I thought I'd be tormented by memories, struggling with guilt or rage, but instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The kind of peace that comes when you stop lying to yourself. I sat alone in a cheap hotel room, my phone powered off, my credit cards left behind so there wouldn't be a trail. The world outside kept moving, oblivious to the fact that I had just detonated my own life, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. I pictured her coming home that evening, expecting the usual me in the kitchen. Dinner on the stove, a kiss on the cheek she didn't deserve. Maybe she'd check her phone, exchanging another sly text with him, assuming I was none the wiser. But instead, she would find emptiness. No keys on the table, no shoes by the door, just a hollow, unsettling silence. She would call me, of course. I imagined the first few attempts casual at first, then more urgent. I could almost hear the shift in her tone from mild annoyance to confusion to something she wouldn't want to admit, fear. And when the calls went straight to voicemail, when she realized I had shut her out completely, that's when the weight of what she had done would finally hit her. I didn't leave because I wanted revenge. I left because I refused to let her see me break. That was the difference. If I had confronted her, she would have had power. Her fake tears, her desperate apologies, her excuses that twisted the blame back onto me. But now she had nothing. Just an empty house and a silence she couldn't manipulate. I pictured her tearing through the house, looking for some kind of clue. My wallet was still in the drawer, my clothes were still in the closet, but I was gone, and that would terrify her. It's not because she missed me, but because she didn't know what I was thinking. She didn't know if I would expose her. She didn't know if I was watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. That was the thing about people like her. They could play their games. Lie with a smile, betray without hesitation, but the moment the script flipped, the moment they weren't in control, they unraveled. And I wanted her to unravel. I wasn't coming back. Not for closure, not for explanations. She had lost me, and she didn't even know how. I checked out of the hotel the next morning before dawn, paying in cash. My phone remained off. No contact with anyone. I didn't exist. And for the first time in my life, I was free. I always wondered what it would take to make her feel even a fraction of the devastation she had inflicted on me. I didn't need to see it with my own eyes to know that the realization of my absence was already consuming her, the uncertainty, the fear, the confusion, all, the emotions she had never expected to feel because, in her mind, she had me figured out. I was predictable, reliable, a man who would always be there even if she betrayed me, but I wasn't that man anymore. I could imagine it clearly, her waking up the next morning, groggy, thinking I had come home late, maybe slept on the couch after. Some imaginary argument she had convinced herself we had. She'd check her phone first, scrolling through whatever meaningless messages had occupied her the night before, maybe a few from him, the ones she thought she could keep hidden forever. I knew how her mind worked. She would read his texts, probably, smirk at them, still believing she had everything under control. But then she would look around. The absence of my usual morning sounds, the coffee machine, the shower running, my keys jingling in my pocket would finally register. She would call out my name, maybe assuming I had just gone out for an early errand, and then she'd check her phone again. No messages from me, no calls. Her first real moment of doubt would come when she checked my side of the closet and found everything exactly as it was. Clothes neatly hung. My shoes still lined up in their usual place. To anyone else, it would seem like I hadn't left at all, but she knew me. She knew that if I had planned a trip or had been called away unexpectedly, I would have said something. She would search every inch of the house, looking for a note, a hint, a reason. She wouldn't find one. And that's when panic would set in. She would dial my number once, twice, 3 times straight to voicemail. Again and again, until frustration and fear made her voice crack as she left messages. Where are you? Are you okay? Call me back, please. But she wouldn't get a response because I wasn't there to soothe her guilt. To make it easy for her to come up with a convenient excuse for why she had done what she did, that's when she would start calling other people, friends, my coworkers, even family. And the answer would be the same.
Ow.
No one knew where I was. No one had spoken to me. No one had any idea why I had disappeared without a word. She would probably try to convince herself that I was just angry, that I was teaching her a lesson and would come crawling back after a few days. But the longer the silence stretched, the harder it would be for her to hold on to that illusion, because deep down, she knew. She knew she had pushed me too far. She just never thought I would be the one to leave. The moment she realized that she had lost control, that's when the regret would begin to sink its claws into her, because she had been so sure that I was the weak one. She had been so certain that no matter what she did, no matter how many lies she told, I would always be there. But now she was left with something she had never prepared for: uncertainty. She had spent so much time sneaking around, carefully covering her tracks, thinking she was untouchable. But what she never considered was the possibility that I wouldn't fight for her at all, that I wouldn't beg or plead or demand answers. She had expected anger. She had expected a confrontation. She had never expected silence. And now that silence was consuming her. I imagined her sitting on our bed, staring at her phone, desperate for a sign that I was out there, watching, waiting. But there was nothing. It's just an empty house, and a truth she couldn't escape. She had destroyed everything, and now she had to live with the consequences. And as I sat miles away in a place she would never find me, I felt something I never thought I'd feel again: peace. I imagined it all unfolding in real time, the moment my silence became unbearable for her. At first, she would have convinced herself that I was just angry, maybe staying with a friend for a few nights. But the longer I remained missing from her world, the more that quiet paranoia would creep in. Because it wasn't just that I was gone, it was that I had vanished without a single trace. By now, she would have exhausted the usual routes, calling my number endlessly, leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to angry to confused. I pictured her pacing around the house, checking every window like I might suddenly appear outside, like this was some elaborate test of loyalty. But she didn't understand yet. This wasn't a test. This was real. She must have called my closest friends by now, and I knew exactly how those conversations would go. At first, polite concern. Hey, have you seen him? He's not home, and I haven't heard from him. And when that got her nowhere, the calls would get more frantic. No, seriously, I think something's wrong. He's not answering his phone. He's just gone. But my friends, loyal as they were, would only give her one answer. We don't know where. He is, because I had made sure of it. That's when the cracks in her perfect little world would begin to spread. She would drive past my usual spots, the coffee shop where I liked to sit and read, the gym where I trained, the quiet bar where I sometimes went to unwind after work. But I wouldn't be there. She would check my bank records, only to find nothing. No new charges, no ATM withdrawals, no digital footprint. I had cut myself out of her life so cleanly that I might as well have never existed. That's when the real fear would set in. She wasn't worried about me, not really. She was worried about what I knew. See, the thing about cheaters like her is that they rely on control. They manipulate, they twist, they gaslight, carefully craft their lies to keep their victims in place, to make sure they have the upper hand. But when I left without a single confrontation, she lost all of that. Now, she didn't know what I was thinking. She didn't know what I had seen, what I had discovered. She didn't know if I was out there plotting my revenge, and that terrified her. I pictured her at work, distracted, her phone glued to her hand, checking every message the second it came in. Maybe she was too paranoid to even talk to him. The man she had risked everything for. Maybe she was wondering if I had found a way to expose her. I had sent something to her boss, her colleagues, her friends. She didn't know, and that was the worst part for her. I wondered if she was still sleeping in our bed, or if it felt too empty now. Did she sit on the couch and stare at the front door, waiting for it to swing open? Did she wake up in the middle of the night, thinking she heard my car pull into the driveway, only to realize it was just the sound of the wind outside? She wanted answers. She wanted closure, and she was never going to get it because I was gone. Not just physically, but mentally. I had erased myself from her world, and now she was left chasing ghosts. She thought she had broken me, but she was the one unraveling. Now, it was around the third or fourth day that I knew she must have been spiraling. The first stage, confusion, had surely passed. Now she would be slipping into something darker, something more desperate. The walls around her perfect little world were closing in, and she had no idea how to stop it. She had probably checked with every single person she could think of by now. My parents. They wouldn't have given her anything, my friends. I had made sure they knew nothing, and even if they had, they wouldn't have helped her. Her own family? I doubted she had told them the truth yet. No, she was still holding on to the illusion that I had left in anger, that this was all some elaborate plan to make her suffer for a few days before I crawled back. Ready to forgive, ready to be manipulated again, but as the days stretched longer, as her texts and calls continued to go unanswered, I knew the reality of the situation was beginning to dawn on her. She must have started looking for clues, something, anything that would give her a sense of control. I imagined her rifling through our house, searching for a hidden letter, a note, a message left behind that could tell her what I was thinking. But she wouldn't find one because I had left her nothing but the unbearable weight of her own regret. I wondered if she had called him yet, that she sat in our bed, phone clutched in her trembling hands, debating whether or not to call the man. Who had helped destroy our marriage? Would she even admit to him that she had no idea where I was? Or was she afraid that I had already done something irreversible? Maybe she had told him a watered-down version of the truth, trying to gauge his reaction. He left. I don't know where he is. Simple, cold statement, one that barely scratched the surface of what was really happening. But deep down, she would. No, this wasn't normal. Husbands don't just vanish. They don't leave without a word unless they've had enough. I imagined her pacing in our kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, her voice tight with panic. I think he knows. I think he's planning something. Maybe he, the man she had thrown everything away for, would try to calm her down, tell her she was overreacting. Maybe he would even be arrogant enough to believe that I was no real threat, that I was just another weak, broken husband who would eventually come crawling back. But she knew better. Because this wasn't me lashing out in rage. This wasn't me throwing accusations or begging for an explanation. This was silence. Silence is far more dangerous than anger. I imagined her checking our joint bank account, her breath catching when she saw that I hadn't touched a dime. That was the real kicker. The moment she would realize that I had planned this. Because men who are lost, men who are broken, make mistakes. They slip up. They leave a trail. But I had left nothing. That's when the fear would become unbearable. Because it wasn't just that I was gone. It was the uncertainty of why. What was I doing? Who was I talking to? Had I gone to a lawyer? Was I waiting for the perfect moment to strike back? She had spent so much time sneaking around, covering her tracks, building her web of lies. Now she was trapped in a web of her own making because, for the first time in our marriage, she wasn't the one in control. I wondered if she was sleeping at all. I pictured her lying awake in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, her mind running through every possible scenario. Would she still go to work, trying to keep up appearances? Or would she call in sick, unable to focus on anything but the gnawing panic in her chest? I hoped she was suffering, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted her to understand what it felt like to live without, to feel powerless, to be left behind. But no matter how much she regretted it, no matter how desperately she searched for me, the truth remained the same. I was never coming back. She must have been unraveling by now. The woman who once stood so confidently, believing she had everything under control, was likely pacing the empty halls of the life we had built together, haunted by the silence I left behind. By this point, she would have exhausted every possible explanation, every excuse she had fabricated in her mind to justify my absence. Maybe at first, she had convinced herself that I was simply blowing off steam, that I had gone to stay with a friend, that I would return once I cooled down. But the days stretched into nights, and still no sign of me. That's when doubt would have begun to gnaw at her, slowly at first, then relentlessly. The realization that I had left not in anger, not in a moment of impulse, but with careful, calculated intent must have chilled her to the bone. I imagined her sitting at the dining table, staring at her phone, flipping through our old photos, hoping to find some hidden clue, some missed detail that would tell her what had pushed me to the point of vanishing. But there was nothing left to find. The memories she once took comfort in had now turned into echoes of a life she had destroyed. I could see her trying to function like normal, putting on a brave face at work, pretending that nothing was wrong. But it wouldn't last. The mask would slip.
Ow.
The weight of it all would bear down on her, and soon she would start making mistakes. Missing meetings, forgetting deadlines, losing track of conversations. People would start to notice. They would ask questions. You okay? You don't seem like yourself. And she would force a smile, tell them she was just tired, maybe say she had a lot on her mind. But deep inside, the panic was setting in. She would try to reach out to old friends, anyone who might have heard from me, but they would all say the same thing. We haven't seen him. We don't know where he is. And that would terrify her more than anything else. Not just because she didn't know where I was, but because she didn't know what I was planning. Had I gone to a lawyer? Had I told my family? Had I gathered evidence against her? Had I met with someone who would ensure that? Everything she had done would come crashing down around her. She had always been in control of the narrative. She had been the one dictating how things played out, how the lies were spun, how the truth was buried. Yet, but now she was left in the dark, and she was suffocating in it. I wondered if she had started making desperate calls yet. Maybe she had reached out to him, her secret, her mistake. Maybe she had whispered to him in a trembling voice, "I think he knows." And maybe he had reassured her, laughing it off, telling her I'd come back eventually. But she wouldn't believe it, not anymore. She would check her email obsessively, waiting for something, anything, a sign that I was out there watching. Maybe. She feared an anonymous message, a sudden revelation that would expose her for what she was. But no messages came, just the suffocating quiet of uncertainty. Had she stopped eating yet? I pictured her sitting in the kitchen, staring at an untouched plate of food, her appetite gone, her nerves raw. The anxiety was taking hold now, creeping into every corner of her mind. She probably couldn't sleep either, not properly. Every sound in the house would jolt her awake. Every vibration of her phone would make her heart lurch in her chest. She thought she was untouchable.
Ow.
She was trapped in the very prison she had built for me. And the worst part? She had no idea if the suffering would ever end. By now, the weight of my absence had become unbearable for her. I knew it, even though I wasn't there to see it. I could feel it in the way her world must have been crumbling around her, piece by piece, with every unanswered call, every dead end she ran into. She was unraveling, and the only person who could save her, the man she had betrayed, was nowhere to be found. I wondered if she had started making irrational choices yet. Desperate people don't think clearly. They grasp at anything that might make them feel like they're regaining control. It's like they can rewrite the story into something that makes them the victim instead of the villain. Maybe she had started telling people I was the one who had abandoned her, conveniently leaving out the part where she had been lying to my face, sneaking around behind my back, making a fool of me in my own home. Maybe she had even cried to someone, letting the tears fall like they were real, sobbing about how she didn't understand what had happened, how she didn't know why I had left. But there was no sympathy coming her way, because no matter how many stories she tried to spin, no matter how many half-truths she fed to the people around her, she couldn't change one undeniable fact. I had disappeared, and she was completely powerless to bring me back. I imagined her waking up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, reaching for her phone before realizing for the 100th time that there were still no messages from me. Maybe she had started driving around the places we used to go together, hoping, praying that she would see me sitting in a coffee shop or parked outside a familiar spot, lost in thought. But I wasn't there. I was nowhere. And that was what terrified her the most. Had she looked at herself in the mirror yet? Had she noticed how tired she looked? How hollow her eyes had become? Maybe she had started skipping work altogether, unable to focus on anything except the gnawing fear in the back of her mind. The fear that I wasn't just giving her the silent treatment. That this wasn't some temporary punishment. That this was real. I pictured her sitting on the floor of our bedroom, surrounded by remnants of a life she had taken for granted. Maybe she was holding something of mine. An old shirt, a gift I had once given her, a photo from when we were happy. Maybe she had started whispering my name into the silence, hoping that if she just said it enough times, it would bring me back. But I wouldn't be coming back. She thought she had broken me, but she was the one breaking now, piece by piece. With every second that passed, the regret, the panic, the emptiness, it was devouring her from the inside out, and I was finally free. I woke up to the sound of waves crashing gently against the shore. The air was crisp, salty, filled with the scent of freedom. The first thing I felt was peace, a deep, unshakable calm that I hadn't known in years. It was real. I was really here, far away from everything I had left behind, no longer tethered to the weight of betrayal, no longer haunted by her lies. It had taken weeks of silence, of disappearing completely, for me to finally understand something. I wasn't running away. I was moving forward. Shh. On the other hand, was trapped. I could imagine her still searching for answers, still obsessing over what had happened, replaying every moment leading up to my disappearance. Maybe she had finally admitted to herself that she had lost me for good. Maybe she had broken down completely, crying into the same pillows where she once whispered secrets to a man who wasn't me. Maybe she had even realized too late that she had never really understood me at all, and I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I was thinking about me. No more checking my phone to see if she had responded. No more second-guessing myself, wondering if I had been too harsh or if I had misunderstood the signs. No more sleepless nights lying next to someone who had already checked out of our marriage long before I ever knew. Instead, I was here on a quiet stretch of beach in a place where nobody knew my name, where I could rebuild from the ground up. I had enough savings to start fresh, no attachments, no baggage, just a man rediscovering what it meant to live for himself. I took a slow breath, feeling the weight in my chest lift a little more with each passing second. This was my life now. Not the life she had forced upon me. Not the one where I was the fool waiting for a love that no longer existed. A new life. One where I got to decide who I was, what I wanted, and where I was going.